Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Blzane, and today I wanted to talk about something that I think is a little understated and isn't discussed enough, especially for new players, on the importance of it, and that's going to be picking your team of 3 to bring to a competitive tournament. Whether that's who to bring, who not to bring, why you should and shouldn't bring them, how to build a good rounded squad. Let's talk about it. Now, more than likely, you're going to be in one of two boats when going to these events. One is going to be you know all the players there, you know who they like to play, who they like to bring, so you can kind of build a team around that. Now, the other option is going to be you're going to an event in which you don't know who's there, you don't know who they like to bring, and it's all a mystery. I'm going to focus on that one more than the other one, but towards the end, we're going to have some tips for this side as well. So assuming that you're going in mostly blind, not knowing your competition, step 1 is find your comfort pick. Find your main character, find the thing that you want to learn the most about, okay? And once you have that, no matter what character it is, learn their strengths, learn their weaknesses, or in other words, learn who they are good against and learn who they are bad against. That is going to be your step 1 of creating a nice, solid team of 3 for Dice Throne. Okay, before we continue, I know I just flipped to a very scary screen with a lot of words and a lot of colors. Okay, don't freak out, I'm gonna break all this down. But what this is a matchup chart. And one thing you can do once you figure out who your main is and you've played them a lot, you're comfortable with them, you probably have an idea of who they are good against and bad against. You can use something like this to A, affirm your beliefs, and B, maybe check on some information that's from other players. Now, when you look at things like this, please understand this is not the end-all be-all. Some of these things are going to have data that's not necessarily accurate, right? Like it's going to be, these people are playing against characters that maybe the other person isn't comfortable with, maybe they're not comfortable with their own character, they're not gonna have the same level of mastery that maybe you do with the character you play, so don't treat these matchup charts or these statistics as gospel, but rather use them to help create an idea in your head of maybe who you might want to start looking at. And now before I get the million things in the comments about where to find this, you can find this in the Free Hawks Discord server. I'm gonna put those words up on the screen right there, okay? The Free Hawks Discord server. I unfortunately cannot create a permanent link to this for my description, but rather if you Google it, you can find it. I promise it's not hard. If you search Free Hawks Discord Dice Throne or something like that, you're gonna find it. It doesn't take much work, I promise you. Once you're in the Discord, you're going to go to Dice Throne Casual. It's one of their tabs. You're gonna hit General, and then inside of that, you can find the pinned comments. And in the pinned comments, you can find this, what I'm looking at right here, which is a hero matchup chart with all online data, at least that they've been able to collect. So that's where you can find this. Now, getting back into the main point here, I'm gonna use this as an example of what you may want to do in order to help create that team of 3 once again. So let's say I really like Paladin, and I'm gonna use this as an example because I'm a big Paladin fan. He's one of my favorites, so I like to build teams around him. One thing I can do is I can look at this chart and I can look across this line right here. This highlighted line right here is gonna be all of Paladin's matchups. So I can see that he's typically advantaged against Barbarian, Moon Elf. Oh, I see that he has a really, really bad matchup against Shadow Thief. Something important to note. The rest of them seem to be either even or slightly advantaged, slightly disadvantaged, nothing too game-breaking either way. Now, I have my own opinions on Paladin and who he is good and bad against because I've played him so much, but let's just say we're using the chart information for now. The biggest red flag and the biggest thing we can see is that he has a rough time against Shadow Thief. He loses a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that information to now find, well, who beats Shadow Thief. So continuing this train of thought, I'm gonna look down Shadow Thief and see, okay, well, Shadow Thief has a couple of good matchups. He's clearly very good against Paladin, we knew this. So what are his bad ones? Well, it looks like Pyro's pretty good against him, Cursed Pirate's pretty good against him, Spider-Man's not bad. And let's say in this example, which I would like to believe I'm a pretty decent Cursed Pirate player. Okay, perfect. He seems to counter Shadow Thief, which is awesome. Let me go ahead and check that. So I'm gonna go through Cursed Pirate, and then I'm gonna check it against Paladin. If you're really trying to be thorough, I recommend this. Now, as I'm going through, I'm gonna look at Paladin's bad matchup. So we have a positive against Shadow Thief, that's awesome. We have a positive against Pyro, which is another one of Paladin's negative ones. Against Artificer, we have a positive. And as we go through, we can see that a lot of the bad matchups that Paladin has, Cursed Pirate covers, which is really, really nice. I'm filling in a lot of my holes. Now, an important thing to remember, and something you might already be thinking, is yes, Dice Throne is a bring 3, ban 1. So I picked 2, but the opponent can ban 1. So let's say Paladin gets banned. Well, that could be a problem because that leaves me pretty vulnerable to, let's say, something like Ninja according to these stats. It could leave me pretty vulnerable to something like Loki, who can beat Cursed Pirate on occasion. It can lead to weird situations like this. So what you want to do finally for your last step is basically the same process of seeing, hey, where are my common misses? Where am I going to have some trouble? How am I going to handle that? And then find a third that slots in to cover those weaknesses. Now, something that does exist on this matchup chart is the team checker. I would personally not recommend using this for a couple reasons. The main and biggest one being it's a little janky, okay? I can type in my team of Cursed Pirate, Paladin, and let's see, Loki. This is a team that I like to bring pretty regularly. And I'm gonna see things like strongly countered by Pyro, Shadow Thief, Paladin, Ninja, Artificer, Vampire Lord, Thor, Black Widow, Wolverine, Rogue, Jean Grey. I don't agree with that. I think that is genuinely just kind of misleading because my team is not that weak against those three things, at least in my personal opinion. There's also some other things that go into it, but I think it's silly when a team or system like this says, hey, you're strongly countered by Paladin. It's like, well, I'm running a Paladin for one, and two, I personally think Loki's really good against a Paladin, so I don't see a world in which I'm strongly countered by Paladin. But again, that's why I would kind of recommend not using this. I think it can give you some false information and kind of lead you down a rabbit hole of thinking you have like a really weak team comp, when in reality you actually have a team comp that covers a lot of what you might be scared of. Now, something that you're going to hear people talk about as well is doing something called ban bait, or bringing a ban bait into your team. This can be okay and can be a reasonable strategy if you still know how to play the ban bait character. So something that more experienced players will recommend, even to new players, which I really suggest you not do, is doing something like bringing Shadow Thief in your team, even if you're not comfortable with Shadow Thief. The logic being that if your opponent sees Shadow Thief, they're going to be scared and they're going to ban it. The problem is, what happens when they don't ban it? And I will tell you, as an experienced player and someone who's been to quite a few tournaments and has done quite a lot of dice throwing in my time, I can definitely, maybe for lack of a better word, abuse new players when they try to do this, because I can typically tell if someone is an experienced dice throwing player or not. There are just things that you kind of pick up on. And if I know that they're not very experienced, I can let something like Shadow Thief ride because I'm not going to be scared of their Shadow Thief. And what typically happens is I put them in an awkward spot of they pick a character that I know I have a good matchup against, or they pick Shadow Thief where they have the better matchup, but they don't know how to play the character very well. So if you're going to do a strategy of bringing some kind of ban bait to try to ensure that you have the same two options every game, that is viable and it can work, but be careful that you don't get stuck with a character you don't know how to play, because I promise you that will end up so much worse than if you had just brought 3 characters you were comfortable with. And for the last chunk of this video, I want to talk about what if you're going into a group where you do know what they play, you know what they like to run. Well, the obvious answer is you can build a bit of a counter team, okay? The easiest example is something like Huntress, which is an extremely, at least pretty decent counter to Cursed Pirate. Cursed Pirate has a really tough time playing against a good Huntress who knows what they're doing. So, if you know that someone in your field loves to bring Huntress and they want to play Huntress all the time, you have one of two options. Assume that you're going to ban it when you play against them, or B, bring a team that beats Huntress and force them off of their main choice, right? This is something you can do. I usually recommend not playing like this because typically that means you're kind of focusing on 1, maybe 2 players, and then you're probably going to struggle against the rest of the field because you're just trying to really hone in on beating them. But if you're just really trying to take down your best friend and you for some reason want to make their bracket run or their Swiss play terrible, then by all means, go for it. So as a final breakdown and your steps that you should be looking to do: 1, pick your main. 2, find your main's weaknesses. 3, figure out who's going to fill those weaknesses best. And then finally, step 4, repeat the process but with those first 2 that you've picked. A lot of times what you will see with newer players is they just bring their 3 favorite characters, which is fine. If you're just playing to enjoy the game and you're not a crazy psychopath who likes to analyze numbers and really dig into it, bring your 3 favorite characters. Don't let this ruin the fun of the game for you. But if you really want to improve, and honestly winning is a lot of the fun for you, I highly recommend doing some analyzing, looking into crafting a really good team of 3, and then getting good with that team of 3. So hopefully this helped y'all out. I hope that this helps you craft a team that you find enjoyable and find success with, up that win rate as much as possible. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, like, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.